So what does a heat stroke look like? A severe heat stroke. My name is Janet. I have a 5-year-old Roddy and I have a 3.5-year-old Roddy. My 3.5-year-old Roddy weighed about 145 pounds. I think actually more. He lost about a couple pounds, but he's a big boy. We made the mistake of going on an afternoon walk. It was something he's done a million times before. He's our smaller dog. Our older dog is completely fine, and unfortunately he didn't take it well. When we got home, we noticed that he was wobbly and he ended up collapsing on the ground and not responding. He was disoriented. We immediately started hosing him down with the water hose to cool him down, but he wasn't really responding. So after that fact, we rushed him to our local veterinarian. They did manage to bring down his temperature. When he came in, he had a temperature of 106 degrees Fahrenheit, which is extremely bad. They managed to bring his temperature down to about 103. And then the first symptom that happened from there was diarrhea. They said that it mimics the diarrhea like when a puppy has parvo. It smelled horrible. He obviously can't control it, and it's just the GI tract is one of the first systems that absorbs the hit when anything systematic happens to a dog. So his GI tract was basically going haywire, starting to go haywire at this point. They did do a full blood panel on him when he went to our local vet, and at that moment his blood results were okay. But that's only because he had just had the heat stroke about an hour ago. They did recommend a pet hospital, an emergency hospital, to keep him overnight for observation. And honestly, I feel like this is what saved his life. We went ahead and went to the hospital immediately after that, where they booked him in. This is where things started to show. So what's so scary about heat stroke is you don't know how severe it affected a body until you start seeing symptoms. So this is where his liver and his kidney started to show signs of organ failure. His diarrhea became bloody. So he went into the emergency room on a Thursday. By Friday night, I thought I was having to say goodbye to him. I was so distraught. I couldn't. It was a nightmare for my family. I was just so inconsolable. I was crying. I was temporarily. The guilt that I feel still to this day is just indescribable. I mean, I know better. I should have known better. And at this point he was just in a lot of pain. He was out of it. He like I mentioned, he had that uncontrollable diarrhea. His liver and his kidney started going into organ failure. Basically, at this point, the risk was something called DIC, where his blood can no longer coagulate, so he would have massive internal bleeding. They did do a plasma transfusion, which helped him a lot. It helped. It basically, at this point, you have to buy your pet time for its body to start the healing process. With a heat stroke, there's not really a cure. It's mostly them having to go through the motions with support and coming out through the other side. So they did do a plasma transfusion, which helped him. By the next day, his numbers, they kept every 12 hours they were doing a blood panel. By Saturday morning, he wasn't better, but he wasn't worse. So he still had a 50% chance of surviving. This was still hard for my family. The waiting is the hard part. It's every hour feels like a week. We didn't sleep. We hardly ate. It was hard to function. By that evening, his liver finally started to respond a little bit. Initially, his enzymes were about 1,300, and regularly, I believe, don't quote me on this, but it's about 200, so something like that. But I'm just saying this to show you. I know for a fact he had 1,300. I'm telling you this to show you how drastic it was. His kidney still wasn't really responding yet from on Saturday, but his diarrhea was slowing down a little bit. By Sunday, his kidney started to respond a bit, and again, his diarrhea started to slow down. By Monday, he was aware, meaning he could walk towards me. So from Thursday to, I want to say, about Saturday, even maybe Sunday-ish, he needed help standing up. So he couldn't move. He wasn't awake. He wasn't active. By Monday, he was wobbling towards us when we would go to visit. He was still a little sad. But by Monday evening, he was fully aware. That's when he noticed the catheter in his arm and he tried to take it out. He was getting frustrated of being in the hospital and just being laid down. He did recognize us, and whenever we would leave, he would start crying. So this is when and this is what they call clinical signs. So there comes to a point where his organs are responding, but then they want the actual pet to respond as well. They want to see his behavior. Is he aware? Does he recognize you? Does his eyes move to you when you're talking? Things of that nature. Is he responding essentially to his environment? And he was. So they still wanted him to, at this point, eat. They wanted him to eat, and they wanted his numbers to look a little bit better. By Tuesday, his numbers were looking really good. His liver kept improving drastically. His kidney actually went back to normal, but his bilirubin was still high. So that's still, that was still a concern. At this point, he was extremely aware. And I know for a fact he was getting frustrated of being at the hospital. They wanted him to eat, but he's never responded to eating well at the hospital. We did ask if we could take him home to see if he would eat. If they wanted his numbers they wanted one more night to observe him. So they did. By Wednesday evening, around 7 p.m., we were able to bring him home. He hadn't eaten at the hospital. By Wednesday evening, he came home. He was extremely tired. He was kind of shocked. He had like trauma. He would just stand there and almost just stare at us. He didn't like it when he couldn't see us. So this definitely, us coming to visit and then leaving him, and then coming to visit and leaving him, unfortunately did affect him. But after a night's rest at home on Thursday morning, he asked for food. So finally he ate. The next milestone was if his stomach, that's my other dog snoring. The next milestone was if his stomach could properly process food, and if he could have a bowel movement. And we also couldn't just introduce his regular food right away because his stomach was still very, very sensitive. He was on medications, an antibiotic and some probiotics to kind of help his GI tract heal still. We actually, thankfully, are able to measure with a scale or his food. So we only bought extremely low fat meat. So ground chicken, 99% fat, fat free, things of that nature. We cooked, he only ate that and boiled a chicken breast, and we would measure 3 ounces slowly. So one day he'd have 3 ounces, the next day he'd have 4, and so on and so forth. And we did that for about, a week. And he finally had a bowel movement because it was so underweight. He wasn't eating. He went 4 to 5 days without eating when he was in the hospital. So he lost quite a bit of weight. So he finally came home and he ate that following morning. And we periodically started increasing his calories, his food, just to not overwhelm his stomach. And he was handling it well. He didn't throw up once, which is a sign that you look for. He didn't just show any signs of discomfort. Actually, every day he was at home, he got more and more energy every single day. And finally, the only thing that we were waiting on was for him to poop. Basically, he needed to poop. We needed to make sure that he was processing it correctly and the muscles were contracting all the way. And he finally did on Tuesday. We were so happy. He actually pooped 4 times. On Wednesday morning, we take him to, honestly, his walks at this point are at 6 a.m, and they consist of 10 minutes, not even. But when he jumped into the car, we noticed on the way to the park that, which is a 5-minute drive, that he was moving a lot. And we just thought he was really excited because he gets really excited. When we got to the park, for him to come down, he couldn't stand on his legs anymore, on his back legs. He was just very wobbly, very weak, very uncomfortable. He never cried or anything, but he really, really couldn't get up, which was immediately concern for us. I'm like, oh my, I grabbed one of his legs and it was kind of like this. And I'm like, oh no, I think his paw's broken somehow. But we didn't hear a cry or anything. We take him to the vet. And again, he couldn't stand. When the vet did a manual examination, he would cry out in extreme pain. So one side was a little bit worse than the other side. I think his left side was completely very weak, and the right side, he had a lot of pain there. So we take him from the vet. They recommend the hospital again because they don't have an MRI machine. So they recommend an MRI on his spine to see what happened. The only thing that she could say is that it's not organ related. It was definitely muscular. We go to the vet. He's able to stand on his own. And then they let us know that he started bunny hopping. His vitals are okay. When he did the blood work, they did mention that his liver enzymes were a little high, but that's still because he's recovering from the heat stroke. But his white blood cell count was high as well. So that was kind of something to keep an eye on. They recommended an MRI. They couldn't get him that day. So today is Thursday. This morning he finally went in for the MRI. And I tell you again, last night I'm going through so much Googling and researching and thinking, what causes this? What causes that? I'm thinking ANNPE. I'm thinking AVDD. I'm thinking herniated disc. I'm thinking so many things. And I'm just bawling, crying. Like, why is he going through this again? Why is he in the hospital again? Why did we have to leave him again? His little face when we walk away from closing his kennel is just so heartbreaking. The MRI showed that he actually has no spinal injury whatsoever. He does not have IVDD. He does not have ANNPE, but it did show that his muscle around his tailbone is it's very inflamed and irritated. So that's essentially what's causing the weakness in his legs. Now the question is why? And they also noticed that while he was under anesthesia, while he was doing the MRI, that his heart was beating arrhythmically. Like it wasn't beating normally, pretty consistently. So they recommended an ultrasound of his heart. And hours later, we finally get that. And actually about, I want to say 40 minutes ago, I get a call from the doctor again. Essentially, he had a blood clot. He had a split blood clot in his heart. And there is a blood clot in his heart, and it went to his hind legs, which caused the weakness. So now we're very lucky that it wasn't a complete blood clot. Excuse my language on this, okay? I literally just learned all of this, but this is my experience. Whenever it's complete, they become paralyzed, and because blood flow is restricted to the area, the muscle starts to die. So it was just a partial, which is why he could still walk, which is a very, very good news. And because they did the ultrasound, he can now start on anti-clotting medication. Now the big thing is, why does he have this? So the future is still kind of unknown. But we're taking it day by day. Otherwise he'll be coming home tomorrow, hopefully, with the anti-clotting medication and some other medication, and hopefully he will start to heal. She essentially said that the heart also went under a lot of stress with the heat stroke, and it just needs time to heal. And in order to prevent further blood clots to form, he needs to be on this medication just to give his body time to heal. The muscle will heal with the blood flow, and hopefully he can make a full recovery. But we're not out of the woods yet. Honestly, every minute, even as I'm talking right now, my heart is clenching. I am full of anxiety. I'm full of stress as a person. I don't wish this on anybody, and especially not on him. He is the most innocent, purest puppy you would ever meet. But he's so strong and he's a fighter, and I'm going to do everything I possibly can. And in case anybody is going through this, I just wanted to show what it could look like, a version of it. This is something that it's unknown until you're going through it. But this is what it could look like, and there is still hope. This is costly. If you're wondering how much this has been so far, we are well over $30,000. Yeah, that's not, and it's not something that we have in our back pocket. I'm going to be completely truthful. It's not. So I will be linking our GoFundMe down below. It does help towards medical costs, and obviously, I future appointments and stuff and whatnot. If everything goes according to plan, which is hard because there is no set plan for the things like this, he could heal in about 3 to 6 months, if I'm not mistaken. So that is Bane's current journey with heat stroke. I will make another video showing how he's doing now. But if there's anybody out there going through this, don't lose hope. It's hard, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. So thank you guys so much for watching. I give you all my love, and I'll see you guys in the next one.